Morning, everybody out there in the, the slightly dull Tuesday after a long weekend for many, many people. But we're going to brighten it up with some great conversation. We're back here at the Grenville Turner Studios in Cranfield. You know me, I'm Andy Hough, and I'm quite pleased because I'm looking at myself and the workouts are clearly paying off. We are joined this week by our lead host, Helga, who is in Portugal. She's stealing everybody because Alex has now gone off to Portugal. Adam probably is going to announce that he's leaving for Portugal at any particular point, which is, a bit of a tough one. So, Helga, what are we going to talk about?
Dull. What are you talking about, dull? Brace yourselves, everyone, because this is going to be an exciting episode, always full of insight and inspiration. Nonetheless, because we've got you, Andy, and we've got Adam. I am Helga Saraiva-Stewart, founder at Lead Results and Sales Shaker. So I'm very excited to be talking today about that first strategic sale, going after those types of sales that are going to catapult your business and leverage the next 10 clients. Adam, how are you feeling?
Yeah, good. Like Andy said, it's for people in the UK. It's first day back after a long weekend, which is always nice. I think that one of the things that's really interesting for us in the UK is that we realise how many bank holidays we have. So everyone in America is like working as normal on a Monday, and we're fantastic, a bit of nice weather. So what is there to moan about? Life's good.
Awesome. I find myself not knowing what to do with the amount of bank holidays we have here in Portugal, but hey, there you go. We've got the sun to keep us warm over here. Let's kick off our conversation today. We are talking about how, what startups can teach us going after with the DNA that they have very specifically, and what can they help us with in terms of going after their first clients. These company clients are typically called the innovator client, and they're called this way because when they look at a startup, they can be typically looking for someone who can teach them, who can help them to fix a problem that they can't fix themselves. And so these companies can become, kind of business cases for startups. They can help these startups to actually go and attract investors. They can become part of that whole process. So there's a very, very specific scenario around this. Adam, can you share a little bit about your experience and just help us set the scene here?
Yeah, so I've run a number of startups, and I think that, well, it's a very different world to the corporate world. Obviously, when you're a startup, you have little track record, you have little structure around what it is that you're trying to do. In many cases, you're kind of being very reactive to the environment around you. You're looking for your first few clients, and those clients are not necessarily the clients that you're firing at. However, as a startup looking for your first few clients, you need to take the clients that present themselves and the opportunities that kind of crystallize as a result of that. I think one of the things that's really interesting for me is how there's a really good kind of parallel between startups in business and young people or people new in role. And I think that as I have got older, one of the things that I have kind of tried to coach the people that I work with to embrace is this idea that you being my first time, you being my first client, you being my first big win is not a negative thing. I think that startups are in this mindset that, we haven't got a track record, therefore we have to discount our offer, or we have to bundle more in with the work that we would normally do. Like young people, when they're trying to close their first piece of business, they feel in many cases, certainly the ones that I've spoken to, they feel in many cases that they're less attractive to the buyer because they're young, because they don't have a huge amount of experience. And I think what's really crucial in all of these instances is to major on the things that are a plus point. So I'm new in role, I'm a new business, you're going to be my first major win. Well, how attractive is it as a buyer to have the person that you're working with say to you, you are going to be my first major client. That means I'm going to work 10 times as hard for you as somebody for whom you're their 50th or 100th client. And I think that kind of mindset about leading with the things that these people can clearly see. A 22-year-old new enroll or a business that's only been running for 3 months, you can't say, here's my enormously long track record. You can't say, here are the proof points. You can't say, here are the case studies. So what can you say that's positive? Well, you can say, you are going to be the person that defines how we do this. Therefore, we're going to be absolutely focused on your needs and what it is that you want to get out of this. And I always think that that's an incredibly positive way to start a relationship.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And we'll kind of jump into the traps and dangers as well of that scenario. But I love your words. And one of the things, I mentor quite a lot of startups, and I love how they can bring fresh eyes into a problem, and they're the ones investing into fixing it. So it may be that another value proposition that they can offer their first strategic client might be, look, we are the ones, we understand, we are focused on this problem. They obviously have to do their homework in validating that this is a problem that their client actually really values. So it's very important, critical that they go after the right personas, the right ideal clients, and they understand them very, very well. And propose, obviously, being the ones that are investing in fixing this problem, that this focus is actually what's valuable about that first conversation. Often in the corporate world, you have sellers who are still focused on their own solution and presenting it to their prospects or clients. So I love this kind of fresh perspective that startups can bring to their first clients. What do you think are can we talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls of being kind of that young and inexperienced? Because, the risk of not delivering is very high.
Yeah, is it? I mean, I think that so often we think that past performance is a guarantee of future success, or whatever, as I say, in the financial services world. And the fact that I've delivered a fantastic solution to Andy and I've delivered a fantastic solution to Alex is no guarantee that I'm going to deliver a fantastic solution to you, Helga. And I think that whilst it gives the buyer, or can give the buyer, some real confidence, you've got a track record of success, I also feel that to a certain extent it breeds complacency. I know what the problem is for you, Helga. Well, how? If you think how we all interact with the business world, every day we receive dozens of emails, cold outreach emails from people saying, I've helped 100 clients just like yours, or just like you. No, you haven't. And it's this kind of one size fits all attitude. So I think that the challenge for small businesses and startups is that they need to manage their time effectively. I think that, if you are knowledgeable and smart and hardworking, you can solve most of the problems that are going to be presented to you. However, I think that whilst you want to make sure that you're giving the client the best possible outcome and the best possible result, the challenge is that you run the risk of saying, well, you're paying me for 100 hours work and I'm going to end up doing 1,000 hours work to deliver this project in a way which is a real case study for me. Now, we all of us, when we're new, whether that's new in role, new in a business, or new as a business, we all of us have to do a certain degree of treating projects like a loss leader. However, we need to be mindful of the fact that we as a business have bills to pay as well. And, I can't deploy somebody solving your problem 100% of the time indefinitely in order to make you happy. So I think that there's that balance to be struck.
So, to me, Adam, a couple of points that I'd like to kind of clarify. I think a couple of definitions have been hijacked. So when we talk about a startup, we naturally start to think about tech, because that's the vast majority of where startups are.
Yeah.
But I was looking yesterday at some of the government stats and the fact that over 90% of UK businesses are SMEs. And there must be a massive amount of startups who are very, very traditional in what they do, whether it be an engineering firm, whether it be a gentleman I met very recently who's they were making trailers that go on the back of cars. That was a startup at one particular point. So we kind of get this big tech blur of what is a startup. And I really kind of sometimes question what is a strategic deal, because is it strategic for the company? Well, probably is, because you've just mentioned you've got to put bread on the table, you've got to pay everybody, so it's really, really important. But what actually is also equally important to go and question, I think, this is where you get, is it strategic for the people on the other side? And sometimes, unless you can get that clarity of, it is strategic for them, you're a strategic supplier, then you've got a real challenge around it. And I think we sometimes just get suckered into, okay, it's a startup who's looking at a tech company who's fundamentally then, looking at a SaaS solution. And I think there's a bit more to it than that. If we're not careful, we're like moths drawn to the flame.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think, though, that as the seller, you have to treat every client as if it's a strategic, a strategic deal, and the reason is that you, particularly when you're in the early stages of development of your business, you can't possibly know who's going to become a lifelong client. Mm-hmm. So everyone is potentially a strategic opportunity.
Yep.
And I think that particularly in the early days of a business, everyone is a strategic opportunity, not because of just how you position them, but because that valuable feedback you get tells you whether or not your product is fit for purpose and it's the thing that the clients actually want to buy. Because, we've learned, as everybody does, that what I know you need to buy and what you think you need to buy are not necessarily the same thing. And it's an awful lot easier to sell somebody something that they want rather than something that they don't want. So allowing the feedback. Yeah. And, market creation is a long and lonely road in many instances. And working with clients where they are resistant to purchasing the thing that you're selling, even if you absolutely know that thing is the right thing for them to buy, just makes life extremely difficult. So I think being reactive in the early days to that live feedback from the clients that you're working with and the prospects that you have is absolutely crucial. But yeah, I mean, startup is not purely a tech thing, It's everybody's dream. Well, I say everybody's dream to open this. It's my dream to open a guitar shop one day, and that would be a startup. And ultimately, for all of us, it doesn't matter what it is. Whether you're crocheting things or delivering a piece of hardware that does facilities management in large office blocks. A startup and your dream is it has to begin somewhere, doesn't it?
So let me just throw in a comment here, because I picked up on what you're saying about every seller should treat their clients as a strategic client. But here's a challenge that startups have, whether they have investment, they're pre-seed or seed stage already, they need a fast route to sales. They need a fast route to sales. And so I would imagine that that in itself is a huge challenge to treating every client as a strategic client. They need to be very, very good at targeting. And the better at targeting they are, the better their conversion rates are going to be. So they have this very small window of time, and they do have to build up the layers of client profiling, of potential client profiling, and target the hottest leads first. They've got to do this, otherwise they're just not going to get enough traction and interest for investment, if that's what they really need, especially if that investment is going to finance their technology, their innovation, their platforms, whatever it is that they're selling. So one way that I know a lot of startups do and are encouraged to do in order to meet that challenge is to actually ensure that in their founding circle, they have somebody who's a visionary, who's the visionary. They have somebody who's the order filler. They have somebody who's the technologist. And there has to be a place here and a huge focus on that targeting and going after that fast route to sales. And often they can just be more knowledgeable about the product and the technical side of things rather than the sales side of things. What do you think of that?
Maybe.
You stunned him into silence.
Yeah. Well,
you heard it here, folks, or you didn't hear it here. Adam was stunned.
I think that's one scenario, but I think that it's quite dangerous to cookie cutter this, because if you are running a business that requires investment to build and develop the product, that is probably true. We did not want funding for DLA Ignite, and the reason we didn't is that both Tim and I read a book by Rand Fishkin called Lost and Founder, where he lost his business as a direct result of going down the seeking VC funding for the organization, which meant that he lost control. So when he had an offer to sell to HubSpot, it was like, no, we're not selling. And we're not selling because we want 100 million, not 40 million for it, because that's our business model. And that struck fear and terror into our hearts, the funding route. Now, because we are effectively a training and services company, we've developed our own IP, and we do some other stuff as well, but we're actually a bodies business. Then our requirement for funding is somewhat different. If somebody gave us $20 million and said, here you can grow, it wouldn't help us to grow necessarily. And so I think that the requirement for funding and those people around the center of the organization, I think that there are a number of different scenarios that don't fit what you just said. But I also think that it depends on who the founders and the early people involved in the business are. Because if you are young, so like Mark Zuckerberg, let's say, when he started Facebook, if you're young, you haven't got a network. Nobody knows you. You haven't got any history with anybody because you're new in the workplace. Now, you may be visionary and you may be clever and you may have a great product and you may be able to get funding for that product, but actually you're selling cold. When you get to be old, like me or Andy or whoever, the reality is that there are hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people who know who you are and know your track record. So actually, the requirement for selling in that way, cold outreach to people, making sure that you have your proposition right and all of this, may actually not be the way to launch the organization, because you might have a bunch of friendlies, a bunch of people who know you, a bunch of people who are keen to support you by putting your product, prioritizing your product or service over someone else's, that enable you to get a much more comfortable launch and route to market. But I think that, as is always the way, you have to cut your suit according to your cloth, don't you? You have to look at the resources and the assets that you have as an organization. Are we cash rich? Do we need a cash injection? What's the best way of getting that cash injection? Is it to give up equity and get venture capital or angel funding into the organization? Or is it better to remortgage my house and personally invest money in the organization? Are we going to bootstrap it? And we're not going to go for funding, but what we are going to do is we're going to agree to give our time for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months into the organization and not take a salary in order to get to a point where we've developed revenue for the organization. You know, who do you know? So if I wanted to sell something, I could go out to everybody in my organization and I could identify those people that have got really big networks and great black books and say, who can you introduce me to? So I do think that there are a number of different scenarios for how an organization can get that first sale. And I think part of that is about embracing like I said, the assets that you have as an organization and really sweating those assets. Because I think so often, you know, you go into, and, you know, I've seen it when I've worked in big corporates, you're given a particular role with a particular set of targets. And it's like all of the equity that you've built up in a particular region or market or industry, actually, that's not relevant, you know, because you're going for this industry over here. And that seems rather foolish. It seems like squandering opportunities to me. So I think that you know, this idea of understanding where the hidden assets are, where the hidden value is, how can you exploit those is really crucial, particularly in the early days. Because, you know, even if you've got VC funding, you know, funded businesses run out of money. And the reason they run out of money is because they start with $5 million in the bank and they go, well, we've got a huge runway. Well, it doesn't last long with that attitude, does it?
Yeah. So let me add something to that, just a thought on my end, because the reality as I see it in startups, I encounter very few training companies. They tend to be a lot of technologists and platforms and services, and of course, quite a few products in the midst there. And what I find that a lot of companies or a lot of founders embrace in the situation, in the scenario where they just don't have the network to kick off that first prospecting, is to offer potential clients or innovator clients, as we're calling it at the beginning of the show, to, for example, be their mentors, to even offer them non-executive roles. And so what I do find, and equally I do find with quite a lot of VCs and business angels, and when they support these businesses, they do feel the heavy weight of responsibility of actually helping them to generate sales, those first sales, and bringing in those contacts and making those introductions and setting those bridges. And that's just the reality. That's just the reality. I think ultimately, and I would love to hear also what Andy thinks about this, but ultimately, there is this trying to escape the, oh my God, I have to sell scenario, because I'm so good at the technology side of things. And so if I can pass the buck of selling to somebody like a VC or an innovator client or business angel, you know, we find that that's the case. But of course, when the money runs out and, you know, those sales haven't materialized, then you're going to have the VC or the business angel breathing back on your neck saying, well, you know, you really should have used, you know, this time, these resources, these contacts that I've given you in order to sell. So founders have got to become huge valuing sales and generating those first sales and be very proactive.
Well, I can answer that because I've been the recipient of exactly that. My first ever business that I founded was we got a business angel who was kind of like a friend of ours to help fund the business, and what happened was this person was responsible for generating visibility for the organization and for generating initial introductions and sales, and they didn't do it. And I think that one of the things that running my own business over the years has taught me is that sales are everybody's responsibility, particularly mine as founder of the organization.
That's right.
And they are, without any shadow of a doubt, the most important activity that the organization can do. And I think that a lot of the challenge that we have is that people often, founders of organizations have their particular pet love that they want to do. So I'm a techie, I want to build this, I want to configure servers, I want to bake cakes, whatever it is that they want to do, that's their thing. And they put sales quite a long way down the list.
That's right.
And actually, you can bake the best cakes, you can be the best programmer, but if no one's buying your stuff, you ain't got a business.
That's right.
That's the fundamentals, though, isn't it? So, I've got this scene in my head from Wall Street when somebody puts an arm around Bud Fox, yeah, and it's like you can't ignore the fundamentals, and that's the point. Is the world went cookie, I think, for about 9 years when it was free money, and no one cared. Yeah, there was no issue. Borrowings were at zero. You were then chasing multiples, and I've sat and so if I look at the ISP was a startup, as a professional body. To your point, everybody had to be out there doing sales. The strategic deal was never the big one. The strategic deal was landing with people who understood what you were trying to do and then growing. So it wasn't about size. And people, I think, Helga and Adam, get all bent out of shape and go, strategic means big. No, it doesn't. Strategic could well mean landing with the right organisation that will be with you for multiples of years. And fundamentally, it's really quite interesting is if you're involved in a business, you've got to have people like that who listen. So I've been a board advisor, I've been on the board as a non-exec to an organisation, and the CEO just didn't listen. Yeah, it was very much Adam. It was a bodies company, it was a training company, and it found SDRs, and it then, and everyone's going, this is a technology company. No, it's not. It uses technology to enable some development of people, but it's not a technology company. Yeah, but it is because we've got these multiples. No one. It's not. It's this type of organisation, and again, it's back to the earlier point, isn't it? That everybody wants to try and make it fit that they're a tech company because you get massive amounts of interest if you're a tech company, and you get big multiples because then the next round of funding means that a bigger fish comes to play with you, and it's like, guys, it's the fundamentals. Yeah, don't try and maybe one of the best things that's happened really is the fact that there's no more free money. And so actually, you've really, to Adam's point, you've really got to cut your cloth according to your weave. You can't just throw money at the problem anymore.
Yeah, I think, you nailed the point there that I wanted to ensure that got shared with everybody listening, which is going back to these fundamentals in practice really, in my view, means understand your client, but not, everybody still talks about needs. I've been a huge champion for transitioning your mindset from needs to problems. And even more, I talk about pains and gains because you may not just focus on helping to reduce or eliminate certain problems. You might actually be sitting on the other side of the fence, which is helping your customer to achieve certain results or materialize certain opportunities. So there's pains and there's gains that help to make that sale exponential. Selling to needs is limiting. And at the back of that, startups should be focused on doing what I call innovation discovery. That innovation discovery helps you to connect the persona, your ideal client, the person who you help to materialize those gains or eliminate those pains better than anyone else. You do it better and in a unique way. And when your client understands that and they become an ambassador for your own brand, whether it's a big ticket or not, that can also help to leverage your business. But as I say, startups really are looking, whether we think it's right or not, typically they are looking for that fast route to sales so that they can attract those VCs, those business angels, to actually come in and give them the cash. Whether that's the right approach or not, it would be lovely to hear from our audience out there to give us your opinion. You're joining us live here now, but you can always...
We're unfortunately out of time, so what we'll need to do is bring Stuart in at a later date.
Come back to us, checking the Sales TV website, and you can find the channels that are available for you to join us there.
Excellent. So it's been absolutely cracking. You'll have noticed, everybody at home, that obviously Adam is not Stuart. Stuart's had a parenting issue this morning, sorry. So we will get Stuart back on. If you go to as Helga says, the website and the LinkedIn page, you'll see all the future episodes, including the later edition. It's been fantastic to chat to you both this morning. Fantastic to get some of the comments. Thank you, Janet, etc. Have a great day, everybody out there.
Piece of cake, Helga.